Welcome to another race analysis video. This is the Port Adelaide Cycling Club Dockside Crits. We're on a street circuit out at Port Adelaide, and it's a really interesting course. So to start off with, we've got a really sharp left-hander. It starts with a nice on-camber turn, but as you roll over around the corner at speed, the camber of the road sort of switches, and if you go in too hot, you can very quickly run out of road. Got a nice sweeping turn coming up ahead. This one was much easier done right off the front of the pack. In the middle of the pack it got a bit challenging as people started swinging wide and going through inconsistently. Spoon drain was pretty easy, wasn't a really sharp spoon drain like Unley, and the rest of the course is pretty much a four corner crit but going the other way. The right hand corner up here didn't pose any troubles. What did make it a bit interesting was swinging from the far left of the road after the corner, cutting back to the right and then jagging through to the left. Road surface was pretty good. There were a couple of little potholes here and there, but nothing too challenging. It was a really hot day. It was about 35 degrees, and so I know a few people were suffering pretty early on. I came into this without really having warmed up, and as a result the first half of the race for me was really just hanging on. I'm sitting here near the back of the race, tail gunning for the moment. This is my first time around the course, so I'm kind of scoping out the corners. This last corner here before the start-finish line, you could go through sitting on 400 watts without worrying about clipping a pedal. It was a really nice smooth corner, and then there's about 100 metres, 150 metres to the finish line. I'm here today with Rocket Racing. Technically these are solo crits, but there's always an element of team racing. There's actually about 5 or 6 of us in this grade. This is a B grade crit, and you'll see after one attempt at chasing a teammate we managed to get things in order, and one by one we make our attacks. I didn't really have much of a strategy coming into this race. I thought I'd see how I went. I was really just going to watch moves, see what went, go with things that were looking dangerous. But for the first half of the race I was really stuck at the back. I tried to move up a few times, but the middle of the pack was really challenging to get through. As you can see, the front of the pack's already gone through the corner and I'm still 10 seconds away. So when I did decide to move up, there was quite a bit of work to do. So we're 5 laps into the race, I've warmed up a bit more and I'm ready to start trying to move up. Coming along here, people were cruising into the corner, and so I stuck a bit more power down, just a easy 250, 300 watts, and I moved up 3 or 4 places. One problem was you sort of come into that corner a bit narrow, a bit shallow, that pushes you out wide at the end. That was fine on that occasion. Other times it got a bit hairy, and especially in the really sharp corner to the left of the map, you really had to take that one coming in wide, otherwise you could run out of room on the right. It's really strung out, and so far the race has been absolutely furiously fast. As you can see, I'm up to 183 beats a minute. We're, 10 minutes into a race, and I'm already just about on the rivet. And so my attempts to move up at this point are pretty half-hearted because I just don't have much in the tank. So we're about halfway through the race now. We're 11 laps in, about 15-16 minutes, and I'm deciding I'm going to try to move up again. I've tried to move up down that back straight. Just got cut off a bit, and so this bit's into a bit of a headwind. People are slowing down, and so I put in a bit of a dig to move up, sort of 5-10 wheels. The problem is though, coming into this corner I'm coming really shallow, and I managed to make it through, but I have to squeeze the brake so as not to carve into the line on my right. And that was the problem. Every time you try to make up space on the inside, you end up coming into a corner quite narrow. Nick Clark, rider 66, he wasn't particularly happy with me cutting the line off, but I guess that's it. Anyway, I made up a whole bunch of spaces, but then everyone slowed down. I wasn't quite ready to get back on the front, or to get on the front at all, and so I ended up slotting backwards a few wheels. This guy ahead of me takes a really bad corner, has to hit the brakes, and now I'm hitting 500 watts just trying to keep up. And that was really the course of this race. It was really punchy. Out of every corner, especially out of the hairpins, I'm spiking up to 600, 700, 800 watts to get back up to speed, and then it sort of goes down and cruises like this at 0 watts. Again, this corner is quick if you can take it with a good line, but there's always traffic. A few laps later, move's been brought back, everything slows down, and I've finally got enough energy left to go for an attack of my own. I hit the accelerator, come around this corner, I see that there's a rider up ahead, pull out to do a bit of a turn, and then realise that it's one of my teammates. What's the number one rule of crit racing? Do not chase your teammates. So I get on the front and pull a bit of a false tempo for a bit, try to give him some space. He looks back and sees me chasing, and there's a little bit of history here, so I can just about hear him screaming, "What the hell are you doing?" But a few seconds of false tempo, then a couple of other riders come through. Now the rider who's up the road is Art. He's a really, really strong threshold rider. He can genuinely ride away if he's allowed a bit of space. He's not the punchiest rider, but he could just ride at his threshold just about all day. So at this point I'm pretty happy just to sit in second wheel. I'm not going to contribute, and just by being there, hopefully I'm going to give him a bit of a chance of getting up the road. A minute later, rider from Renbeer's been doing a solo effort by himself. Keystone rider goes and jumps across. Now I'm not going to try to close everything down, because if I do, then I'll bring the field with me. But also one or two riders going across to help Art is good. It puts him in a really good position potentially to win the race. By himself, with 15 minutes of the race still to go, he's not going to be able to stay away from a bunch that's bothering to chase. But if there's two riders up the road, one of which is a teammate of mine, then we're sitting pretty. So once again, I'm just going to sit second wheel, let the Renbeer rider do all the work trying to chase it back, and I'm getting a free ride. And again, a couple more individual riders go jumping across. At this point, now that there's 5 riders heading up the road, they're all from different teams, so it's one where that might go, but I think a few people are now a bit nervous about that many people getting up the road, and I'm not going to let it go with that many people. So I hop in the back, and once again I just sit there and see what happens. There's a bit of toing and froing. The Keystone rider who went off after Art first up, he comes back. There's a bit of dissatisfaction, but then big Nick Chabrel, he gets on the front. And Nick Chabrel is another one of these super strong riders who can just hold his threshold forever. When Nick gets on the front to chase something back, something's coming back. So as you can see, everyone wants to get on the back of that, and the pace goes straight back up again. At this point, Art's got about 10-15 seconds up the front of the road, up the bunch. So he's still got a good, healthy gap, but with Nick doing a massive turn on the front, it's realistically, it's going to be a bit of a struggle for him from here. And sure enough, it's about a lap later before Nick brings him back. We're now 26 minutes into the race, 18 laps in, 4 laps to go, and a group of 3 has got up the road. The group didn't so much get up the road as someone let the wheel go. It's been super fast since Art came back. Once again, Nick Chabrel gets onto the front to try to bring it back again, so the pace is going to go right back up. But at this point, my heart rate's still 184. We're near the end of the race, so that's not too bad. It's hot, it's nothing out of the ordinary. But I'm feeling okay. At this point, the legs have finally properly warmed up. I'm feeling like if I need to, I've got something in the tank, and let's see what happens. Going around these corners up to the right, you can see that the guys ahead only have 3 or 4 seconds, so they're still in sight. It's dangerous, but with 4 laps to go, sort of 5 or 6, 7 minutes, and a motivated bunch, I'm pretty confident that they're not going to stay away. But what I'm really worried about at this stage is more gaps opening up ahead of me, and potentially another group of maybe 2, 3, 4 riders jumping ahead, and bolstering that group. Because if maybe 6 riders, 7 riders gets up the road at this point, then with this little time left in the race, that's a really dangerous move, especially since a lot of people are tired. This race has been really attritional. Lots of people have dropped out because of the heat or whatever. And so I'm worried that if a group does go up, that's the end of the race. And sure enough, as we go towards the start-finish line, the pace comes out of the race. And that group up the road, you can see 1 or 2 people trying to jump across to it, but the pace is dropping a bit. People start swinging all over the road, people throwing the elbows. And just as the race fans out across the road here, I can see that, sure enough, a group of about 3 or 4 is going across the road, across to that group in front. So now there's 2 groups of about 3 in front of me, and I'm going to see if I can get across to them. Now, fortunately for me, this guy from Team King's Head, I think it's a Cervelo team, this guy seems to be doing a whole lot of work to try to bring it back. Nick Chabrel comes back. He's attempted to get across but hasn't stuck with it. So this guy starts doing a whole lot of work, and I'm pretty happy with this. Obviously, it's better not to be doing the work. I do want this to come back. I'm always going to be more confident in a bunch sprint than I am bridging across to any sort of break. I'm not a threshold rider. I'm a sit-in and sprint at the last minute rider. So when he pulls off, I know I've got at least 3 laps to go because I haven't seen the bell yet, so I'm going to get on the front and do a turn. I'm doing 700 watts, but I'm not trying to break away at this point. I don't want to try to bridge this gap by myself. I'd much rather pull a serious turn, close some of the gap, flick the elbow, and then let someone else come through and finish it off. Ideally, I'd love to be getting the group back together with 1 or 2 laps to go, with me sitting near the front, with just enough time to recover. You can see going through that corner at speed, you really get close to the barriers because the camber of the road dips off to the right. Now at this point, I've brought back a lot of the distance, flicked the elbow, and nobody has come through. It's just looking behind me, people have fanned out across the road. I put in a bit of an effort because I want to be first through this corner. This corner is, you can rail through it at full speed unless you're in the bunch, in which case you might have to apply the brakes. Coming through, I see that I've still got a gap and no one else is going to chase. I don't want to be racing for 7th. I've done a turn on the front, but you know what? It's either this or, why did I bother turning up? Now, I've said in many videos in the past, and I've said it to anyone who'll listen, I'm not a breakaway rider. I don't do well with long efforts over threshold, or frankly, I don't do particularly well with efforts at threshold either. I'd very much rather have, punchy 30-second on, 30-second off, or ideally 30 on, a minute and a half off. And so here I am, breaking away, solo bridge, trying to get up to 2 groups of 3 up the road. Every now and again I'm looking back and just absolutely gobsmacked by the fact that there's no one on my tail. I see the 2 lap to go sign. I admit that if I hadn't seen that sign in this lap going through, I would have pulled the parachute. I didn't think I had much left in the tank to get across. And I'm riding at a completely unsustainable power level. You saw me at 500 watts coming out of the corner, 400 watts, now I'm dipping down to 300. But the good thing is I'm making my way across, and this absolutely surprised me. I did not expect to be making any ground on what's now a group of 5 or 6 ahead of me. They've come together. I would have thought that 5 riders working together could easily keep me at bay, particularly if I've got more than about 30 seconds of work to do to bridge. And I can just see them, they're so close, but at this point my heart rate's at 196. This is the highest I've seen all year. I'm absolutely on the rivet, pumping out 600 watts, just trying to get across, especially since coming into this section just after we go around the left corner here, this is a headwind. This is a really stiff headwind, and I was hoping to be able to get back on the back before that. I couldn't, and it just about killed me, but they're now so close, I knew that I could make it, and so one more big dig to get across. As I said before, you can go through this corner on the gas, you don't need to brake, you don't need to stop pedaling, and one last big ditch effort, and as the bell rings for 1 lap to go, I'm making it onto the back. Had a glance behind me, there's nobody there. Having said that, 198 beats a minute, I am gassed. This is everything I've got now just to stay on the back of these 5 riders. I've got Nick Underwood, Phil Braze here directly ahead of me. We've got some really strong sprinters, and these guys haven't just done a brake effort. Now they have been off the front for probably a lap longer than me, but they've been presumably rolling turns, and I've just absolutely gassed myself. And so at this point I figure I'm just going to try to stick with the back of them and hopefully recover as much as I can before the last 2 or 3 corners. Now that little bridge effort set a whole bunch of season PRs for me. It even set some of my shorter all-time PRs getting across. So I'm putting the power out. That was everything that I had, and honestly, if they'd been another 10 meters up the road, I might not have got there. Coming around this corner, I'm getting gapped off the back. I'm struggling to hold 300 watts. And that little gap, instead of being the typical sprinter's gap, that's meant that I just don't have enough to get on. Now, as it happened, as I caught up to this bunch, a solo rider went off the front, so we're actually racing for second here. He's crossing the line about now, and I've got nothing left. I pop out a decent sprint, I'm hitting 1,000 watts, but I just didn't have enough in the tank in the 5 corners before that to make my way up through this group. They were riding super strongly together, and it was really all I could do just to stick with them. Anyway, that was the Dockside Crits. It was a fantastic course. It was great to race on something that was a bit different from a motorway park or just a standard four-corner crit. It's kind of nice turning left sometimes as well as right. I'm absolutely thrilled to have gotten 5th with it, and I learned a little bit about breakaway riding. You can go through those corners at probably 5, 10, 15 k's an hour quicker when you're by yourself than you can in a bunch. I had a chat with some of the guys in the bunch behind. They said once I went off the front, no one was willing to chase. So I guess that's why I was able to stay away. But I think if a couple of people had come with me, we would have closed it down a bit quicker and maybe had a chance for the win. Anyway, good race, had a lot of fun, and I can't wait to do it again sometime. Thanks for watching, we'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.